All right, this is a video on adjusting base fuel pressure on a C4 Corvette modified. For example, your stock C4 Corvette will have 22-pound injectors in it, and your fuel pressure, base fuel pressure, meaning with the vacuum unhooked to your fuel pressure regulator right here, will have about 42 to 44 psi of pressure. And when you put the vacuum to it, so if your engine's running, we're simulating that most engines will pull 15 inches of vacuum or so, 17 inches, and then we drop. So you should normally, on a 22-pound injector car, drop to about 38. Now, this is a different application. What we're doing here is we have big injectors, 38-pound injectors in this car, and that is because it's got a supercharger that goes over here. And so what we are doing is we're adjusting down the base pressure of this car instead of up. It's backwards. So we're adjusting it down to compensate for, to make the injectors less flow under normal operations, and especially under vacuum operations. So we're going to start this thing about 36, 37 psi. So I've had good luck with it about this before. And then if you check the vacuum on it, see, this is adjustable. You can adjust it right here. This is not a factory regulator. That's an adjustable fuel pressure regulator. So the tighter you tight it in, turn this in. If you turn this in clockwise, like you're tightening a bolt, that pressure is going to go up. When you put vacuum to it, it counteracts it, and so that pressure is going to go down. So if we end up achieving on this motor, which I'm going to say it's going to pull 17, 18 inches of vacuum, we're going to be down to 28, 29 psi of pressure, which is very low, extremely low. But on a 38-pound injector, it's going to, limit the fuel. Of course, what happens when you start lowering the psi on injectors, they don't spray as well, so it gets more inefficient, which is not good. Because, this is old school backwards way of doing it. But these are pintle injectors. You can't overboost the disc injectors. These are pintles, the ones that have the little, pins that come out of you can overboost these up to a point, that is. So all this means nothing until it gets under boost. Now this device down here is a fuel management unit, which basically ties into the fuel lines. You see, this is the stock C4 fuel lines. So the return is now going to that unit and back to the car. So the return goes to there and then back to the car. So it's been spliced in, so to speak, to this unit here. So I have this air compressor regulated down to 10 psi. So we're simulating 10 psi of boost, and this is a vacuum or static line that goes to the FMU. So you tie it into a vacuum port that's in the manifold that'll simulate the boost that your car is getting, whether it's turbocharged or supercharged. So now, I'll see if I can do this with one hand. I'm going to get the device there. So I'm going to hook this up, and at the same time, you'll watch that gauge go way up. So, man, we're up in the 50 to 60 psi of fuel pressure there. And that's kind of where you want to be under boost under one of these kind of cars. So that'll make those injectors flow probably up in the 40 psi, or 40, not psi, pounds range, maybe even more, like 45. So that's how that works. Now that unit's adjustable. We can adjust it down there if that's too much. But the too much on this, remember, this is all base. None of these injectors are firing, so it's actually going to be a little lower once those things are opened up. And so, but this pump, this car's got a big pump and a big Excel pump in the tank. So it's it'll flow more power than this car will ever think of making. If it needs to. So there we go. We're in this right at 70, 68, 70, and I'm thinking it's when they're firing, it's going to be in the high 50s, and that's kind of where I want it to be. And I'll tune it with this. And so when you start doing air fuel mixture things with oxygen sensor, you can see you're lean and rich by adjusting that. Now, this is old school way of doing things. This is a stock computer in this car. It has some programming for the fans, some programming for other things, but there's not much you can do. This is a tuned port injected car, old school machine. Nothing fancy, nothing high computer, no auto and adjust, no get your laptop out and have a field day with this. This is taking very, very rudimentary electronics, which these are batch fire injectors. And if you're confused what batch fire injectors are, they're not sequential injectors. All 8 of these damn injectors fire at the same time. So that's what they do. It's ignorant. But that's why you see tuned port cars. Why are the injectors PSI so low versus cars that have multi-port injectors with higher pound, not I say PSI, but pounds flow rates. Their flow rates are lower. It's because they're firing more often is why. And so with an L98 with a small cam and these runners, man, you can get away with 24-pound injectors. With this car here, these are actually, it's over injected, so I'm cutting it down. I'd really like to have like 32, 34-pound injectors, but there's not many things made. These are actually injectors from a Typhoon factory GM application that actually does run boost sensitive fuel pressure increase. Basically the same kind of stuff we're doing here. And so that's why we're using those. They will take, I don't know what they'll take, but they'll take up to at least 55, PSI of fuel pressure without locking up, maybe even 60. So as we're a disc injector, probably won't do that. And so that's why we're having to do that. But anyway, so that's the recap. That's your adjustable fuel pressure regulator. And so on a stock tuned port, you want that to be at basically 44. Then if you add vacuum, which you need to make sure that works, because if your fuel pressure regulator is bad and it's leaking vacuum or something, then this application won't work. So that's when your engine is at idle, at low power, it drops the fuel pressure. And it drops it, a good 20, 30%. So you want it to do that, and that's going to give you more efficiency. It's going to run better with that. So that number on a stock tuned port with 22-pound injectors, you want 44 and then drop to 38. And don't look at my numbers for your application, because they're compensating for a bigger injector. So hope that helps if anyone has that question on that fuel pressure setting.